In this daily drop, I'm going to give you a homework assignment and talk a little bit about SDR and HDR. So let's go. All right, fine people. Here we are with another episode of the Daily Drop. If my maths is correct, I think it's episode 134. And just a short while ago, I got off of a meeting with one of the head engineers and people at AJA. And we're having a whole conversation, a long geeky conversation about their mini converters, a product they have called Color Box, and just really identifying where there are pain points and also maybe misunderstandings or a lack of education in the community. And one of the things that we were talking about is standard dynamic range and the transition that we are all dealing with or are going to have to deal with in terms of going to high dynamic range. And it's kind of a misnomer in terms of the definition, because when you think about video, and it's a very different thing when you talk about photography, but when we think about video and we say high dynamic range, in essence, it really has to do with exactly that, dynamic range, our blacks to whites, our number of stops that we're capturing with our cameras. But really, a huge component of that is the color or color gamut, the color space that's captured, and then the bigger subject of that being called HDR, and how do you deal with it, and how do you transition from standard dynamic range to high dynamic range and make sure that you're not only capturing, but you're delivering correctly with all of this stuff. Crazy. Okay, now, there's a video I'm going to send you to, and I would start at about I have a note here, 6-minute mark. You could go all the way to about 8.5 minutes. It's part of the Sacramento, I'm just going to read it here, section of SMPTE. And they have these meetings, and this particular one is the presenter. His name is Norm Hurst. He's been in the industry forever and has contributed a lot to this subject matter. But what's really amazing about the presentation, and it's if you start where I'm saying about the 6-minute mark, it's going to be a little under an hour long. And you can watch it. I'm watching it like at a 1.75x speed, and you can still really follow along. You might have to pause every once in a while. Is his ability to explain the subject matter of standard dynamic range, really, as he says, we just called video back then, and high dynamic range is exceptional, meaning that he's taking a very complex subject matter and he's explaining it in a way that we can really understand it. And that's what I'm all about, is taking subject matter that is very complex, not dumbing it down, but explaining it in a way that it can be understood and you can build on your knowledge and you can actually use it going forward. So it's a homework assignment, but I think it's very, very valuable. If you are in video production and filmmaking, you need to understand this stuff. And it is a bit of a rabbit hole, a Pandora's box, because there's all of the parts of the equation. It's not just how you capture with your camera, but it's then how you bring your footage in. He's not covering necessarily all of those aspects, but then how do you set up your timeline and how do you push stuff out? Generally, the best way, as I was talking to somebody at AJA about, and is the best way, is to capture the most information in your camera and then work with the most information in your NLE and then push out and then target to these more compressed formats or smaller color spaces, smaller gammas, blacks to whites, and gamuts, which are your colors. You get the idea. Watch the video. I think you'll learn a lot of stuff. And even if you know a lot about this subject matter, it may fill in some blanks. It is for me. Don't forget to. And I'll see you on the next episode of The Daily Drop.